Good morning. My name is Angela Dunn, and I have the great honor of moderating the upcoming panel discussion. The members of this panel represent different facets of the early childhood industry, a business that expands far beyond our stereotypical vision of the preschool classroom. I have been involved in many AOP 20 conversations addressing the skills that really matter when developing a workforce: collaboration, work ethic, teamwork, responsibility. We are all familiar with the list of soft skills we've been discussing. As a passionate educator convinced that early child education provides the foundation for the creation of a quality workforce, I have always left such conversations with bits and pieces of a Robert Fulghum essay and the sounds of pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students in my head. All I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt someone. Wash your hands before you eat. Flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life. When you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Wonder. Everything you need to know is somewhere. The golden rule and love and basic sanitation, ecology and politics and equality and sane living. Take any one of those items and extrapolate it into sophisticated adult terms and apply it to your family life, or your work, or your government, or your world, and it holds true and clear and firm. Indeed, it is the multifaceted industry that we call early childhood education that plants and cultivates the seeds that grow into the skills employees need for success. Today we will explore the areas of philanthropy, data, systems, workforce, and the role of parents. I would like to invite the panelists to introduce themselves, to recognize the organizations they represent, and then to share the insights and information that brought them to this discussion. And we will begin with Kelly Moorman from the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio.
Well, we'll see if I need this, but we'll use it just in case. Thank you, Angela. As Angela mentioned, my name is Kelly Moorman, and I work with the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio on our communications and programs team. And just a little bit about FAO. We are a regional community foundation that serves the 32 counties of Appalachian Ohio, and we've been doing that since 1998. We're actually celebrating our 20th year this year. And FAO's efforts are really seeking to create opportunities by inspiring and supporting philanthropy in our Appalachian Ohio communities, and we're really doing that. And what's animated our work is really addressing the philanthropy gap that exists in our Appalachian Ohio counties compared to the rest of the state. In non-Appalachian Ohio counties, you have about $6,600 in philanthropic resources, so grants and scholarships that go to individuals per capita, whereas in the Appalachian Ohio region, that's about $670. So that addressing that philanthropy gap is really what animates our work. And we're doing that in a variety of ways because without the philanthropic resources necessary to address that philanthropy gap, we can't address the deep-seated challenges like access to early childhood education and development that our region faces. So we also know that in particular, early childhood education development, though education is often in that name, we know that it cuts across many areas of society. Obviously, clear linkages to education, but also health and human services is an essential part of early childhood education and development. But it also has clear linkages to community and economic development, as Jim articulated so clearly during his keynote today, and areas of arts and culture and environmental stewardship can also be integrated within early childhood education and development. And these are all areas that FAO is working in its efforts to address. And the great challenge, but also the great opportunity about early childhood education is that it's a great example of how we can address multiple challenges by emphasizing a single area or initiative. And that's the great opportunity that's here. There's an urgency to address early childhood education and development because the window to create solid foundations that creates a strong life is so slow. So that's really what energizes us to act from a philanthropic perspective, because the need is here, it's urgent, and it's now. You know, we have examples in healthcare with wellness visits and prevention in general that indicates, and food to grow strong, so there's no reason why we shouldn't have the same urgency to address early childhood education. And we recognize that philanthropy is only one piece of this puzzle to really address early childhood education and development. There are multiple parts of society: schools, parents and families, government, nonprofits, and businesses that really need to come together to address early childhood education. Jim stole a little bit of my thunder because I was going to mention the Federal Reserve study that the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia did that indicates that the tremendous economic impact that investing smaller dollars, frankly, in early childhood education can have later on in society. Early childhood education results in lower social costs, such as lower crime costs, as well as higher school achievement, educational attainment, and earnings, all of which yield increased tax revenue. So it's really valuable to invest in early childhood education because we do get such a return on investment. Within our work, FAO has really valued its role as a convener in the region, and we see that as an essential piece of our mission. So a lot of our initial forays into early childhood education and development really started in a partnership with the Children's Defense Fund of Ohio, as well as COAD, Battelle for Kids, and others on the Ohio's Appalachian Children Report that highlights the challenges Appalachian children are facing, including access to early childhood education. And through that process of collecting that data and really writing the narrative to accompany that, that really, I think, further jump-started our interest in this issue and the challenges that are present around early childhood education and development. We've been recently really excited to partner to create the Early Childhood Education Fund for Appalachian Ohio through the leadership of Maureen Boggs and her family, as well as COAD and COAD's member agencies throughout Appalachian Ohio. And the purpose of this fund is to support the many aspects of early childhood education and development, including access to programs in general, because we know that's a challenge within the Appalachian region. That includes the transition from early childhood programs to kindergarten. It also includes support for early childhood educators, which we know is incredibly important. It will support scholarship dollars for students to enroll, and then encouraging enrollment, particularly for those most vulnerable populations. And so we're very excited about that opportunity, and you guys actually have one-pagers on your table if you'd like to learn more about the fund and how you might be able to participate in that process. We've also been really excited because I think so often in the state of Ohio when we're discussing different issues that particularly the Appalachian Ohio region faces, it often devolves into this urban versus rural argument. And last fall, the foundation entered into a partnership with the Columbus Urban League because we recognize that many of the challenges that we're facing here in rural Appalachian Ohio are also faced by our urban cohorts. So we're very excited about the conversations and the partnership and really the convening and gathering of stakeholders across the state that will be possible from bringing a regional community foundation that's focused on a rural part of the state along with the Columbus Urban League, which has been around for quite a few years working on these issues within an urban context and showing how many of the challenges that we face are similar and how we can address those together. So we're excited about that. And then one thing I'll mention, since Jim talked a little bit about social impact bonds and Pay for Success, because it does tie to early childhood education and how we pay for those programs. The foundation last year, in partnership with the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs at OU, as well as Rural Action and the Parkersburg Area Community Foundation, partnered together to create what we've called the social enterprise ecosystem here within the region. And one of the aspects that we're really exploring through that is how to encourage particularly impact investing and kind of non-traditional philanthropic models of funding projects including things like social impact bonds and pay for success models and just impact investing in general, and how that might tie and address early childhood education and how we really fund these. And then a key part of the foundation's work, because we do serve 32 counties, it is a large service area, is thinking about this issue of scaling and how we take and identify strong programs within the region and bring those to the rest of the region. And then I'm sure I'm close to time, so I thank you and look forward to hearing from the other panelists.
Great, thank you. I'm always a little bit shocked when somebody hands me a microphone. And I feel like a lot of us in this room are probably in the same place with that we know what's going on in our communities. We know what we need in our communities. We know what the struggles are in our communities. And we need a microphone. And I think that, like Kelly, I had some data points in my head when I was asked to sit on this panel. And I figured somebody talked about the Perry High School project. I figured somebody talked about the Federal Reserve study. So I don't really have a lot of data points to share, but what I do have, I think, and what I'd like us to consider is what is the point of data. COAD, the Corporation for Ohio Appalachian Development, our early care and education division exists for a couple reasons. One is to help parents find access to care, find access to places where they can be sure that their children are safe so that they can go to work or go to school and pursue a higher education or job training, and to help people who are interested in starting a business, these small business owners and entrepreneurs, to start a child care business. One of the things that we try to do is improve access to care, access to those ECE programs across the 31 county region. So some of the data that we look at on a routine basis is about that access and availability. And we actually have somebody in the room, Marcy, if you'll raise your hand. Marcy's role within COAD Early Care and Education Division is to support people that are trying to start those programs in our communities. And we've never been I don't think we've ever been in a more crucial point in time to make sure that we have access to child care specifically as workforce support in our communities. Over the last couple of years, we've been tracking trends. And between January of 2012 and November of 2014, we looked at the number of child care programs that were licensed by the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services in our 31 county region, because we'd seen the same data displayed for the state. Across the state, there was a 6% net change during that time period. But in our rural counties, it was over 20%. It was somewhere around 21%. And in some of our counties, it was 50% across all program types, whether it was center-based or family child care homes, or the type A homes, which were kind of just a bigger family child care setting. In this region, we've seen a reduction. And we continue to see a reduction in the past, just within the past couple years, we've lost 17 programs in the region served by the AOP 20 group. 8 programs have started back up, but still, we're adding new programs at half the rate that we're losing the old ones. And we're projecting now, because we know that there's some changes that will go into effect in 2020. We've reached out to people, specifically those that are providing those care options for low-income families, that are providing that workforce support, to find out how this is going to impact you. And we're going to lose around 651 slots in this region, in the AOP 20 region, an 11% reduction in the number of slots for subsidized kids, if nothing else changes. So we know that 2020 it's a big looming thing, or just knowing that that's going to happen. And there are a variety of reasons. Some folks are getting out of the business because they're retiring. Some folks are getting out of the business because of other changes that are going on within the industry or within the state. So, but that's what we do. We go out and we find out why, and we ask the question why. That big reduction that we saw over the 2-year period, that was all based on finances, or at least 80% of providers were telling us that they were getting out of business because they couldn't afford to keep their doors open. And we said, why? Why is it different? Why is it different here than it is in other parts of the state? And there was a huge reimbursement rate disparity at that point in time, and there's been a lot of work done to fix that. But in some of our counties in the Appalachian region, we're getting paid half the rate that people in the county next door were getting paid. And policymakers weren't aware of it until we started talking about it. And we've got a forum here where we can share that kind of information. And collectively, we've got a lot of voices that we can get this kind of information out to the public. If every one of us here today here's a data point that intrigues them or says to you, I need to do something about that. And you go back to your office or back to your place of employment or to your church or to your canasta group or wherever and share that. Yeah. We as a group, I think, can make a major difference. That's all I have.
Okay, well, I'm Jennifer Lohman, and I am the Regional Coordinator for Family and Community Services within COAD. Sorry, it's okay. So what I oversee for COAD is the services where the families call in looking for child care referrals. And so we have a database that we use for the 31 counties that we serve that has all the different licensed providers in that. So I'm going to talk about the systems this morning and kind of define what we are saying early childhood education is and what different kind of programs we have. So in Ohio, we have 2 entities that license those child care providers. We have the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and we have the Ohio Department of Education. And I have done the best I can to create a vision. So under the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, we have licensed family child care providers, which a lot of those are licensed then by the local county Department of Job and Family Services. George referenced there are 2 different types of family child care providers. There is a licensed type B home, which is a small home with 6 children. And then there's a license type A, which is a large home with up to 12 children with 2 caregivers. And I'll try not to get into too many of the nitty-gritties, but all of those programs are located in the provider's residence. So it is in their home where they live with their family, and they have designated space that they provide the care for the children. And then also under the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, we have licensed child care centers. Under the child care center category, we would put private and corporate owned. So we have some employer owned facilities. We have the mom and pop child care programs that it's Sally Jane that decided she wanted to provide child care. We have preschool programs, which are part day, part year, some full year. And we have Head Start. And what I failed to put on here was early Head Start. And that's my fault. These programs are all located within churches, schools, within other corporations. Sometimes they are held within the employer's location. But these are all non-residential locations. These are not in someone's home. So then to flip over to the Ohio Department of Education side, we have preschool programs, which can be full day, part day. They also license Head Start. So depending on the county you live in, your Head Start may be licensed by the Ohio Department of Education or the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. They are located typically in schools and non-residential locations. And then we have school-age programs that they license, which are your typical before and after school hours. So when children are not in the care of their teacher in their classroom, parents that have to go to work early that need some place to drop them off, or that need that time between maybe school and practice or school and mom and dad get off work, they're there. And those are typically located within the school. With the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services programs, as has been mentioned several times, those typically provide care for the publicly funded children as well as private pay children. As we've heard a few times this morning, step up to quality, and there is a looming date of 2020 coming. that if a provider is not a 3, 4, or 5-star rated program by 2025, and just a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5-star rated program by 2020, they will no longer be able to receive subsidy. So the families that need that child care subsidy need rated programs. We're talking about those families also that need non-traditional hours, evenings and weekends, which is typically served by the family child care population. In some of the larger cities, we do have child care centers that will serve non-traditional hours, but not as much in our Appalachian region. Try not to get into too much nitty-gritty detail because there's a lot that we could go into and talk about. All of the different types of programs have different types of funding sources. Like I said, Ohio Department of Job and Family Service programs take publicly funded children, take private pay children. Ohio Department of Education licensed programs typically have some operating dollars that come in, as well as Head Start has federal dollars that come in to help them operate. That's why sometimes a lot of those programs that we are seeing closing are more of your local private owned centers and homes, because they are trying to make their own living from their business. I guess just to wrap up, I would say that regardless of what we want to call it, whether we want to call it childcare, daycare, preschool, Head Start, babysitting, it's important to invest in the children young. We've heard that many times this morning, or we're going to be paying more later. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Crystal McFarland. I am the Director of Preschool Services at Muskegon Valley Educational Service Center. Just a little bit about what we do with Muskegon Valley Educational Service Center in terms of preschool. We, overall, our agency helps teachers teach and students learn. At the preschool level, we have 32 classrooms. We currently are in 8 school districts and 3 different counties that are providing quality programming for students. We also provide itinerant services at some of the private centers, such as the daycares and in family homes that Jennifer had talked about, that on behalf of the school districts providing those special education and related services to students starting at age 3. As most of you or many of you are probably aware, that's a mandate through the state of Ohio. Any child who has a special education need is required to have those services provided starting at age 3. So I've been asked today to talk about what the early childhood world and what preschool and quality programming can do to help build those future employees and staff members and help work towards the industry. So we've heard a lot throughout this organization and our AOP 20 work about those soft skills and the need for that. Well, early childhood is where you get those foundational soft skills. It's often the child's first opportunity to be in a place that isn't just at home with a parent, and it's a great opportunity for them to learn those social skills, working on manners, working with others, just even having that structure, that discipline, and that routine. I know we often have teachers that come into the classroom and they're hesitant to provide that structure and that discipline, and I always, I say to them, you're going to discipline and structure this child in a very appropriate manner that may sometime down the road save them from going to jail and going to prison, because they all have to learn how to deal with respecting authority and following directions and following rules and getting along in society. So we are those forefront runners in that, building those foundational skills that they're going to need as they progress into the school environment, out into college, and out into the world. The other thing that preschool and early childhood programs do is a lot of times we introduce children to all the careers that they could possibly be in the future. We have dramatic play areas that are changed from grocery stores to barbershops to, fire stations, and all a plethora of things that expose them to what they may be when they grow up. It provides us opportunities. We do stories and books that expose them also to all those types of possibilities, and go on field trips and share in those rich things that look like, well, they're just playing, but they're also gaining all those things that they may use in the future as they move into their education and beyond. The other piece that I wanted to talk about briefly was how we as an early childhood world help build we struggle sometimes to get quality employees, quality staff members as well, just like any other industry. There are some programs out there called a CDA program that COAD has been sponsoring. We've been able to leverage some support through them to get some quality staff trained to help work with their youngest learners, because obviously if we're creating quality programming, we need quality staff to provide that service. I know I participate in mock interviews through some of our colleges and universities. We're very blessed in this area to have a plethora of universities and higher education formats that do have teacher training programs. So, and they offer the opportunity for professionals to come in and help work with those students. We have Career Expo at our vocational school every year, Mideast Career and Technology Center, that I participated in, that helps those students know what's out there in terms of education and early child care. When Ohio Department of Education changed their licensing structure for teachers, they are now age 3 to grade 3, and that has brought a lot of high quality staff to the industry as well. So there's just been a lot of changes in it, but at the same time, that licensure has been great for the preschool world in some ways, but it's also been a struggle for the preschool world in some ways, because they come in and they want to teach kindergarten, first, second, third grade. There is no longer a specialized program to just teach a preschool student, or that birth to 3, or that early childhood. So that has been a blessing and a curse in some ways, but sorry, totally lost my train of thought. But it's still important that we are learning and growing and developing those professionals that can work with our youngest students as well. And there are a lot of opportunities, and I think just helping students and families and people to realize the need, and helping grow some of our people in our education to go into this industry and to work with the value and see the perspective, and that is valuable that you work and you provide a quality child program. I know sometimes you get the stigma, oh, you're a preschool teacher, and that breaks my heart, honestly, because it's important. It's important, and having those quality staff members and breaking away from that stigma of you're just playing with students and you're not really, it's not a real job, or you're not really a teacher because you teach preschool, is something that we need to work for as well. So I think that's it.
Thank you. I am Michael Harlow, the Ohio Director of Council for a Strong America. We mobilize and engage leaders across all sectors of society, whether it's law enforcement, business leaders, and nonprofit leaders. That affiliation is called Ready Nation. We also have a military organization called Mission Readiness. Mr. Spolito is one of our members. He definitely alluded to some of the issues the military has when he talked about the general from Wright Pat, who was running into the same issues he was. And I was thinking about this age-old problem of finding high-quality workers. And if you feel like you have that problem, you're not alone. In fact, millions of Americans are going to watch TV tonight. Some of us, including some of us in this room, we're going to turn on the television and we're going to watch a well-funded organization that is spectacularly bad at hiring qualified workers. That's because the Cleveland Browns have the first pick in the NFL draft tonight, and they also have the fourth. So just really feel that you're not alone. I'm a parent of 2 young boys. One's in K-12 and one's in early ed, and he's right there. In fact, he's at his early childhood education place right now. He's at 3C's preschool in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I'm from. I spent my whole career working backwards in education policy. I started out in higher ed. Right after I graduated college, I was working with employers and non-traditional students. Even the students were older than me, and we were working on how businesses were trying to find qualified workers, especially in the auto parts industry in Toledo, which is where I was living at the time, and found out that some of the issues were in how they were coming out of high school. And so I started working in education policy. And when I was working at Knowledge Works, we had this early college high school pilot where students were going to high school and college at the same time. And we're finding out that they were, some of the students were struggling because of what was going on in middle school. And then, I was at Ohio Department of Education. We worked on a lot of different policies there. And I heard Jim Sperlino speak one time a couple years ago, and that's what led to me coming to Council for Strong America, Ready Nation, where I work on issues of early education. And I really started to see where that, just how important the early years are. I've noticed it in my own children. We were people that, probably about the last people that needed to send our children to daycare. We had, or even definitely we're going to send them preschool or pre-K, but we wanted socialization. My wife works for a family business. They own and manage apartment buildings, so having boys, raising them around all kinds of construction equipment seemed like a great idea, and it certainly worked well for them, but they really need that socialization. We're really glad that we did it. And I think their social emotional learning skills are developing much better than they would have even if they had stayed home with us, just because of the isolation and being exposed to other peers. When our oldest was a small child, we lived in a condo complex, staying for our first home, and a lot of elderly there and a lot of singles there, and we were one of the few parents with children, so it really made a difference. We also come from very small family backgrounds, and that's more common now. People have smaller kids, so you have fewer aunts, uncles, and cousins. I have one sister, and my wife's the only child. Her parents were only children too. So we felt very good about our decision to go into early education and get our kids into some high quality programs, just because mainly of the social and emotional learning. And social and emotional learning skills are so very important, and that's really what gets us at Ready Nation fired up about these issues. Ready Nation business leaders, I would encourage everyone here to join, because it's not just for private sector, but it's also for nonprofit leaders as well. We have 2,000 members, as Jim's mentioned earlier. We only have about 40 in Ohio. I've been at this job for less than a year. I manage 5 different sibling organizations, and we really need Ohio voices at the national level. Jim mentioned that earlier about how frustrating it can be going to Capitol Hill, but Ohio is a very pivotal state, it's a very important swing state. One of our senators actually both of our senators are very well respected on issues of early education. It helps that we have one Democrat and one Republican, and Ohio is the largest swing state because people really watch what happens in Ohio. And to only have 40 Ready Nation voices is something that we really need as an organization to work on. What Ready Nation does, you're probably wondering, what do we actually do? Our members lend their voices to sign-on letters, op-eds, give speeches. Not everyone's going to be Jim Sperlino and travel 200 miles to give a speech, I understand that. But just going out to your local Chamber of Commerce, local Rotary Club, pressing upon our members, pressing upon their members the importance of high-quality early education, why this matters, why it's an important policy issue, why it's an important workforce development issue. We have a national office that's very, very good at what they do in research, communications, federal policy, and they make sure our members are very well prepared. They wrote Jim's speech this morning. He likes to deviate from it, but I think he did pretty well. The Toyota Way is certainly something that we talk about. I'm one of the few people at Council for Strong America that hasn't read that book yet, so I'm a little bit behind. Overall, we've had a lot of success in advocating for public policy. We had a very strong McVee advocacy campaign. Jim actually went to Congress summer before and spoke on a panel. We had members, one of our Ready Nation members, Senator Portman personally, put a bug in his ear. We had several of our law enforcement members were writing letters to the editor that we help them with, supporting McVee. And we have a strong social media campaign. This is where a lot of our Ready Nation members can also help on that with social media, with your Twitter accounts, Facebook, Instagram. And when McVee was being reauthorized and was finally heading towards passage in early February, the senator's staffs from Ohio especially reached out to our federal policy team on the Hill and said, well, you guys are really killing it on social media, and you're tagging our members, and that's good because they see it. And everything that we could do there was good. So I really encourage everybody here to join our mailing list. It says membership form. You got a green membership form on your table. It looks like this. We got a lot of other paperwork here too, but we're very happy to have as many voices as possible. We don't bombard your inbox with a lot. We really call upon you when we need you, which is when kids need you. And when we need to have your voices at the table to go to bat for at-risk kids. So I think that pretty much sums up what I was going to say.
Thanks to all of you. Right now, we can open it up to questions from the audience. Does anyone have questions for our panelists?
I was wondering if Jen or Crystal could give, honestly, a 1 minute, what is Step Up to Quality? Because maybe for our audience who are not involved in early education, they might say, what's this grading system you're talking about? So I mean, not the, because I know it's a very long process, but a 1 to 2 minutes of what is it?
So Step Up to Quality is Ohio's tiered rating system. There are 5 stars, 1 star being at the very beginning. It is above the licensing requirements for the child care programs. And as you move through the star rating, you're building up on, so it's kind of a pyramid system. So 1 star, you meet all those requirements. For a 2 star, you have to meet the 1 star requirements, then the 2 star. So I think it was referenced earlier, and I apologize, I don't remember who mentioned it, but at the higher star level, you're implementing more items and things within the program, so it's curriculum, assessments, things like that. It's benefits to the staff. For extra points to get into the 4 and 5 star rating, to not get too deep, you can change your staff-child ratios, attend additional training each year.
Staff qualifications,
Yes,
going to that,
as Crystal
levels.
mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, yeah. So to start out, I mean, to work in a child care program, you have to be 18 years and have a high school diploma or GED. So then it would build for licensing requirements, and then like a percentage of the staff would need to have a certain education level, attend so many hours of training, again, above what licensing would require.
And one of the struggles that some of the smaller programs have with meeting Step Up to Quality ratings is some of the things that increase your rating cost money. Providing benefits to your staff, having staff with higher education, lowering your child to staff ratios, all of those things are going to affect your bottom line. So when you're getting less dollars from publicly funded sources and you're relying on private pay, then rates have to go up to balance it out, and it just becomes a real struggle, especially for some of those smaller programs.
Thank you, thank you.
I don't know if this is so much a question as an observation. I've just kind of recently gotten re-involved with early childhood education. I'm teaching CDA classes for folks that are earning their Child Development Associate credential. For those of you that aren't aware, it's a very in-depth program. They spend 135 hours in class. The preparation I've had to do to teach these classes, and I've 35 years as an educator, I don't think that the outcome of that for many of the participants is equal to the effort they're putting into it. As I see positions posted and what the salary, hourly salary for someone with a CDA is, you know, then the next step would be an associate degree and then a bachelor's degree. If you're not in the public schools, you're not really earning a living that I think is commensurate with the effort you put in to get those credentials. And I don't know what we can do to fix that. But that has been real eye-opening to me.
Thank you. Other questions?
We were sharing, as a mom, I had a daughter whose birth dates passed the cutoff for kindergarten and preschool. And now my granddaughter is in the same situation. So just interested in feedback on why is that birth date so critical if the parents really feel that the child's ready for preschool or ready for kindergarten. And then if you don't meet the cutoff, then you have almost a full year where they're getting nothing.
Honestly, I don't think there's a good answer to that question. It's one of those things that you have to draw a line somewhere, kind of like a school district boundary. You know, you have to draw a line somewhere, and research has shown that the children at that age level meet this criteria, that are going to be more successful and are ready developmentally and so on and so forth. So it's one of those things that, yes, you do have children every year. Same thing with the kindergarten age cutoff. You have children that miss it, that you really want them to go, and then you have children that make it, but you don't want them to go, and you have to make that whole decision. But so I honestly, I don't think any of us would have a great answer for that.
I think a lot of it's program by program.
Yeah.
The way that they group kids within the
District by
programs.
district.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's a really good concrete rationale that you could apply to every situation. I know my son missed the kindergarten cutoff, or he was by just a little bit, so he did a second year in the preschool program he's in. He was the best preschooler. He was really good at being a preschooler by the end of it. But I absolutely feel like that strengthened his social skills because he knew what was going on and he was actually helping the other kids. It was just kind of neat to watch. But I just shared that because you triggered that memory for me. But I don't know that there's a good.
I think that's the importance too, though, of having quality teachers, because then those children that spend that second year in preschool, they're able to challenge those kids as well as challenging the younger children. And I too had that struggle. I have a son that has a birthday at the end of June. He yells at me every day. I'm the youngest kid in my class because he's in school. He's 9 in 4th grade, and there are 11-year-olds in his class. So that's the kind of age gap and variation that we have. So, and then my other son turned 6 today. So he's, all excited and stuff. He doesn't have that as much, like he's the typical age with his peers.
That is really a fundamental issue with our K-12 system. We're an age-based system and not a developmental.
Right. So my daughter had 2 years of preschool, and they told me I could put her in kindergarten.
Sure.
Preschool teacher
Right.
said, I will not take her for another year. So, as a parent, you're like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, there ought to be some early entrance requirements that for the K-12 school. I know that there are early entrance requirements for that, so you can work through that with your local public school. But the fundamental problem, and I do believe it's a problem, is that we are age-based and not developmentally based. But that's going to take a completely different conversation throughout our country to change that. And then you throw child care in there, and that's a driving force for many families that want their youngsters in school. If we just fund preschool, from birth up, then we've got it figured out there. We don't have to do the child care thing, but that's where the legislative process will have to work for us, or we will have to work the legislative process, actually.
Thank you. We're going to stop questions right now. We're going to thank our panelists.